Night Thoughts. This episode is being done a little bit differently than what I've been doing normally. Um, I've decided to kind of restrict the chat that you see on the right hand side here a little bit more. We're only broadcasting out to a few different places. We're broadcasting to Facebook, Get Vocal, Periscope, and YouTube. We've decided to swap out the other streaming services at this point, just for Thursday Night Thoughts. We are keeping them going on the other show, which is Morning Coffee with Rob, which is coming to you 4 days a week at 6 a.m. Pacific time. So we are sticking with that because it is more of a conversational style show. So we are keeping that one running as is, and we look to being able to serve with that one a lot more in the future as well. That one will be a lot more fun. It's a lot more of a social time, being morning and meant for coffee. So Thursday Night Thoughts is more just where I express some of my ideas and thoughts and kind of just go from there for the most part. Oh, it's interesting. But I didn't go to YouTube. Huh. Apparently my stream to YouTube may be not working. Let me double check here. So anyway, as I'm looking to make sure that all my stuff is working correctly, which it does appear to be. Oh, I still have that one going too. Oh, okay, perfect. All right, so with Morning Coffee with Rob, we are actually looking at, not Morning Coffee with Rob, sorry. I've already explained that one, that we're doing that one as more of a social gathering. This one here, we are doing more as a show where I'm just kind of blathering onto the camera about different ideas. This one I'd like to eventually have guests on as well. So it might be something that I might look at doing in the future as well, where I just have a guest on. We just have a couple of ideas that we talk about and kind of converse back and forth. And we may open that up to some questions in the future as well. But right now we are, actually, we've also got this going to D-Live, which I did not realize I was still doing, but that's perfectly all right as well. So we are looking forward to serving the D-Live community on this one also, which I think is a good mix for what I am doing. So I am definitely not going to complain about that in the slightest. As you're probably seeing, I am trying to get some stuff over to a couple other spots there as well. Just trying to make sure everything is working correctly, like I'm hoping it is. And it is. Okay, perfect. That is all good news that everything is working. So on this episode of Morning Coffee, or gotta get the coffee idea out of my head here. Thursday Night Thoughts with Rob, we're going to talk about doing good. A while back, I wrote an article called Good is Hard, and good definitely is hard. It is not something that is typically an easy thing to do, not when there's so many options out there to potentially shortcut systems and be able to be rich immediately. It's all about kind of delaying some gratification on it. It's something I worked with my youngest son or not my youngest son, but my oldest son, sorry, during his time at school, in elementary school. And it was something I really kind of worked on him quite a bit. And the concept that I got with Good is Hard, I actually got from an animated series from Warner Brothers in DC, where it was Superman and Shazam versus the Black Adam. And if you've never seen that, it's actually a really good little show or movie. And I think it's about 55 minutes long. It's not super long. And it's really a good little show to watch, because it's not really all that long. And it's really kind of heartwarming. It really hammers home a lot of the idea that doing good and being a good person is what you really want to try to be and accomplish in your life, is being that good person. So, a spoiler alert, if you don't know who Superman and Shazam's secret identities are, I'm about to reveal them right now, so I hope this doesn't ruin it for anybody. Shouldn't ruin it for Superman. That guy's been around for like 100-something years now, and Shazam's been probably around for probably like 80 at this point as well. So Clark Kent was talking to Billy Batson, and Billy Batson was talking about how good was not getting him very far in life, and how being the bad kids that were always picking on him seemed to be getting them further than where him being good and doing good for other people all the time seemed to not be getting him very far, and it was really kind of hammering him down pretty hard. And Clark Kent just looked at him like, Billy, good is hard. And what I got out of that is no matter how much good you do, it is definitely more difficult than doing bad and doing wrong in the world, because doing good takes longer to cultivate and takes longer for it to actually show up in your life as something that you've been trying to do. And eventually it does all come back to you. It just does take time for that to actually happen. I try to do good all the time. I'm not always spectacular with it. I know that. But I do try to do good for everybody or at least the best that I can. And I try to make sure that I am working with people that want to do good as well. And I just find that good really is a difficult thing to accomplish. There's just so much bad and so much negativity out there that when you are doing good, it's really hard to try and cut through a lot of the stuff that's coming through to you and going to other people. So I always try to make sure that I am doing good. And about a year ago, roughly, I wrote an article about doing good. And actually, I'm just going to see if I can find it here for you, and I'll share it into the chats here as well. And it's just a really good article that I really enjoyed writing, and it literally is talking about what we're talking about right now as well. And the story that I was going with here originally was the story about my oldest son. And during elementary school, he was always wanting to play games with all the kids, and he always, not always, but he did kind of frequently come to me, and he'd be crying and upset at the very least about the other kids and what they were doing. And I just asked him, I'm like, well, what's going on? He said, well, they're cheating. I'm like, but are you cheating? He's no. I just kept telling him, like, don't cheat. Don't be the kid who cheats at Foursquare or whatever, or Garden Ball or whatever other games that they happen to be playing. He's like, but all the other kids are doing it. I'm like, yes, but you're not like all the other kids. And like, these kids aren't inherently bad. They're just being kids. But I'm like, told him, like, but do good. Like, just keep doing good, play properly, keep playing the game by the rules, and it will be better. You'll be the winner in the end. Like, it's going to take some time for it to pay off. But if you keep playing by the rules and keep being that kid who's the good kid and not breaking the rules, eventually it's going to pay off at some point. And lo and behold, once he was in grade 7, so this past school year, he actually came up to me and he was really excited. And I was like, oh, what's going on? He said, oh, I'm playing garden. I asked him what he was doing in school. And he's like, oh, I'm playing garden ball. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, well, who are you playing with? He said, oh, I'm playing with the grade 8s. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, why are you getting to play with the grade 8s? He's like, oh, because they asked me to play. I'm like, well, why did they ask you to play? I'm like, are any other grade 7s or grade 6s playing with you? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, how come? Like, what's so special that you get to play with them and they don't? He's like, well, I'm the only one who's not cheating. I'm like, see, I told you all through elementary school that as long as you aren't cheating and playing the game properly, you'll become the winner in the end. And this is the cultivation of that, is that you've played properly for so long, you haven't broken the rules, you've been a really good kid with making sure that you are doing everything properly, that this has now come to fruition, that you are finally getting the recognition that you are playing properly and that you are a good kid and that you are doing everything right. So he was really ecstatic to see that. Oh, I don't want to do that. So it really worked out quite well in his favor, and it's just been something that we've been constantly working on. It's not just one thing that we do once and forget it. It's something that we're constantly working on, is doing good and making sure we're doing good for others and just trying to set that proper example so things like that keep happening. Like, it's, sorry, this is just taking a little bit to get the actual article here for you. Just one moment here. I'm going to put it into all the chats here. Hoping I'll be able to do it from my phone, but it wants to log me out if I do. All right. And there is the article posted up there for you as well. So that way you have it. If you want to go and read it, I would greatly appreciate it. Go read it. I was saying it was just something that we took the time and really cultivated this idea that as long as all the proper work in these games, that eventually it would pay off and he would get to play with the other kids and would come out the winner. And eventually, I mean, it took probably about 3-ish years, but eventually the payoff was he got to play with the older kids and no one else in his class to play with them because they weren't playing properly. And the older kids recognized that properly and they wanted to play with somebody who's going to play by the rules and not try to cheat them out of a fair game. It was just so heartwarming and enlightening to see that the work that I've been trying to do with them, I'm showing that doing good is the proper way of operating, was paying off for them. And it was just, yeah, it was such a great moment to hear that all this work with being good was really working for them finally. Sometimes it takes longer to do all this good to have it actually come back and cultivate anything. I run a series called Trail Tale. I run it every week. It comes up Thursday, 9 p.m. Pacific time, every Thursday. You can also go on to my Patreon here, and you can actually get access typically a week or weeks in advance normally to when it does come out. So that way you can view it early. I also try to share it with all the people who these trail tales are about as well, so that way they see how I feel about them and see how much we appreciate all the work they're doing. It's not always easy, but I do try to make sure those are always done. And it's just a way of cultivating all that good feeling and showing people that they are appreciated and valued. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of good work, and I really enjoy it a lot. I've seen that John Krasinski had started a good news network on YouTube, which was pretty sweet. I subscribed to that and started watching it, and I was like, oh, this is really awesome. Like, this is really what the world needs. I found out that he ended up selling the show to, I think it was like CBS or something like that, where they're going to be running it on actual TV now, which is unfortunate. It's not going to be John Krasinski because he's funny and he really does a good job with it. But at the same time, he's a really busy dude and can't take on more work. He was just kind of doing it over the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown to kind of keep himself going and keep himself active, and a fun way of just keeping in contact with people. So, I mean, he got some backlash on it, but it's like really like the dude's busy. He's got like Jack Ryan, he's got movies, he's got other shows, cameos for different things. And he's promised to try and make cameos on Some Good News when it comes on as well. So it was watching, I was like, there was some really heart-wrenchingly good stuff on there. It was just, like his first episode had a girl who just beat cancer during all this COVID-19 lockdown. He had some first responders. He had nurses. He got them out to like Boston Red Sox. He had like all these people come in and just like do all this stuff. And he had a girl who was supposed to be going to New York to watch Hamilton on Broadway, couldn't make it because of it. So he ended up getting a bunch of people from Broadway singing to her over Zoom, which was really sweet. They just kind of bombed it all and just like started singing, and it was really sweet. And just some of the stuff was just so amazing. It was just like, wow, it's like, that's what we need more of, is more news programs like that, and more stuff just cultivating all these good feelings that are coming out. And then he was also mentioning a couple other ones, which I can't quite remember. The only one I remember, because I've heard it a couple times, is Tank's Good News. And that one really kind of stuck with me as well. And I subscribe to some of that as well now, so I can get more good news, because it's literally just bad news always filtering in. And no diss on them, like they have to make sure that they are paying attention or getting their advertising dollars as well. And the rules that we've always heard is if it bleeds, it leads, and that's really kind of tragic, because there is so much good news out there. But I do see those same contemporary news programs where they have all the bad and disparaging news, but they do try to mix in some good feeling stuff as well. But it's not usually until the end of the program, and it doesn't probably sell quite as well as it normally would if it's something that was more tragic. So I do see them trying to blend some of these things in there, which is great, but we need more positivity, and positivity is really hard to come by, and it's part of the aspects of being good, and trying to make sure that we are doing good in the world is just trying to be a lot more positive than what we have been. and trying to find these good information and bring it through, and providing good information and providing good news and being a good influence to people and being a positive role model. I know everyone looks up to all these superstars for in sports and TV and movies, and some of them are really worth looking up to and doing stuff with. And some of them, they put on a really good show, but then you find out that they probably aren't the best person to be looking up to and respecting. And it's really hard to know in that kind of aspect as to which people are the ones you want to look at. I find the ones that are probably a lot more humble are probably the ones you want to probably go with. The ones who do things like, if you've seen the John Krasinski Some Good News, it's low budget, but the point was that he wasn't trying to do like this high flashy production. He was wanting to do something that brought just goodness and wholeheartedness to people. And it is a difficult thing. And he even said, like, doing all this work during this time was really difficult as well, even though he had no other projects going on. The work behind it all was really difficult to produce this show once a week. And I give him all the props for taking it on and making it something that people loved it and really enjoy, because it is not easy. Like, my production value here is really low budget and really ghetto. And it really takes me a long time to try to figure some of this out. And I do this live each time because I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of the editing. I don't have guest speakers and stuff lined up. I just kind of do this and I shoot from the hip, and I just kind of hope for the best that this comes off well. It's something, the morning coffee ones I do have to admit I enjoy more because it's more of a conversational thing, because I do have things coming up in the chat here and on the Get Vocal chat over on the left that only Get Vocal can see. And I enjoy going through those and just chatting with people through the chat sessions and just replying back to them. I find it to be a lot of fun, and I've talked to a few people and they've been really great. One guy has now been sober for over 16 years, and it was just a really heartwarming thing to see. And I was like, it was really awesome. Somebody else was trying to figure out a better way of learning English because he wanted to be able to speak English better, and he was a 15-year-old kid from Italy. There's a lot of great things that I noticed that people were just trying to really do, and it was just really fantastic. And I spelled that wrong, so we'll put an extra B in there. There we go. And there's just so many cool things like that out in the world that people just don't get to see, or just it gets buried down, and we just get so bogged down in what's going on in our lives that may not be good, that we find it hard ourselves to end up doing good. And this just the stress from everything. If more bad piles on us and more negativity piles on us, the more stressed out we become, and the more our anxiety levels increase, which makes us look for shortcuts and do more bad things than what we probably would be more accustomed to as normal people who are usually prone to doing good. I know as I'm getting stressed out and anxiety and more negative things pile up, that, I mean, it's human nature. We start looking for shortcuts. I know I've tried to as well. There aren't really any shortcuts that are going to get you to where you want to be. Just doing good is really the only option that you have. I know you can see that doing bad does seem to pay off, like with crime and things like that. It gets really kind of glorified a lot more in media, like television and movies. But even in the end, a lot of those people don't end up winning in the end. Like, the movies really push on doing good is the better option. And that's just the way we have to operate. That's why we have superheroes. They personify the good that's within us. And they really push a good message of being that person and being our own heroes and being able to do the good that we want to do in the world, trying not to take those kinds of shortcuts. I know there's a bunch of anti-heroes out there as well, and they do good in their own way, but they aren't doing like the good. Like Spider-Man typically doesn't try to make shortcuts. Superman doesn't take shortcuts. Thor typically tries not to. Vision, Batman. Batman's a little hard to tell. Like, he's one of those anti-heroes that's doing good, but it's really hard to see him doing good in some cases. Wonder Woman, who's super noble, doesn't try to do shortcuts either. She tries to face everything head on and just does the best that she can. Like, she's very, very much Sort of I'm looking for. Wholesome, I guess, would be a good word. And we've got a lot of people like that in the world too. It's just really hard to find them sometimes, and you hear them from people that were not with us anymore, like Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, and just folks like that. But there are more people in our world now. It's just that they get buried down underneath all the more negative stuff that comes out and all the problems that we have. But they are still doing good, and they're pushing forward and trying to make sure things are happening. One person that really comes to mind who really pushes on the whole kindness button and doing good and being a good person is Gary Vaynerchuk. He really pushes on the whole kindness and empathy. There's Robin Sharma, who really pushes on being empathetic and doing good in the world as well. Any of those thought leaders that you can see, like Simon Sinek, John Maxwell, all those guys are all pushing on that, as well as doing good and being a good person and trying to bring forth your best abilities and your best self, so that way you can enlarge other people and lift them up as you're going up as well. So there are the people out there, they're just not maybe as well known. I'm not too sure, but they are out there, and I highly respect all of them. And I really think they're all doing a great job. I really think as a human race, we are pushing forward. And I think that's why we're starting to see a little bit more resistance, is that we are doing so much good, potential good in the world, that we're seeing a lot more negativity trying to push back, because doing the good is hard. And we are eventually going to get to our best version of humanity. It's just going to take a little bit more time than what we were probably wanting it to. And we probably might not see the results now, but future generations will start seeing the results of us pushing on and making sure that all the good now is done for them later. And that we do fight back against the negativity, and we do fight back against the bad, and that good will triumph in the end. But like Jocko Willink also says, and a lot of other people say, you can't have the good without the bad. So no matter how much good we do, there will still be bad. But at some point, we will start seeing a lot more in the way of good. But when we do see the bad, it'll seem more amplified at that time, because there'll be so much more goodness. But it does kind of eventually balance itself out. You can't have the dark without the light. You can't have the good without the bad. So keep that in mind. No matter how much good you do, there will be bad pushing against. But that's why good is definitely more is difficult, is because you're having to push back against the bad. And the bad really does push pretty hard to come back at you. So like I said, just keep going on, keep doing your good, and we'll all get through everything, and humanity will come out better on the other side. I guarantee eventually we will come out better on the other side. And look at Star Trek. Came out great there. Seriously. That's a good example, I'm sure. So on that note, I figure we'll leave us off with a bit of a smile. For those of you who know Star Trek, good on you. For those of you who don't, watch The Next Generation. It's probably the best series out of all the groups, and I like them all pretty well. So anyway, I am going to let you go for the night. I thank you for joining me. I look forward to having coffee with you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Pacific time, and that one will be streamed everywhere. So we look forward to seeing you then. I hope you have a great evening, a great morning, great afternoon, wherever you happen to be. And I'll talk to you all later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I look forward to serving you more. Have a great night, everyone. Talk to you later. Oh, and one more quick thing. If you want to continue the conversation, you can do so right here on my social media, which is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all with Eldorado. All right. Thank you all. I look forward to serving you more. Have a great time. Adios. Bye.